we would love to hire you full time to be our maintenance guy and our worship pastor. And I'm just like, why?
Hello and welcome to the Sound Doctrine podcast. My name's Caleb.
My name's Keaton.
And my name's Will. We are here to talk about worship and how it influences God's people.
We're going to dive into the lyrics we sing and the church practices we participate in each week and how they influence your congregation.
Whether you're a church leader, congregant, or someone just interested in worship, join us as we encounter Sound Doctrine. And we're back with another episode. How we doing, boys?
Oh, we're doing so good.
Oh, gosh. And again, you guys have decided to match. Less this time, though, than last episode.
We're kind of going with like a Christmas color.
It's a different, like, he wears flannels with normal t-shirts.
Yeah.
I wear flannels with hoodies, you know?
That would be way
Sure.
too hot
And
for me.
for the record, Caleb and I are not matching.
Yeah,
That's true.
today.
That's
so
more
true.
of a miracle.
That is more of a miracle.
Well, on Friday, me and Keaton wore basically the same exact.
They
like,
both
I
wore
love
white.
that. I
It was
love
like,
that.
but it was
white
a white
shirt.
like quarter zip
That's
basically.
the worst thing to wear on camera.
Oh, and
Anyway.
Actually,
they were both sitting right next to each
well,
other.
Okay, I wore
Yeah.
it because I am trying not to wear the same thing every week, which I've done 2 weeks in a row before, because I forget because we record on Mondays.
All right,
and then-
Sound Doctrine dress code needs to become a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of Keaton.
why is it because of me?
You wore the same outfit, bro.
Well, I had it on first, and then Will copied me.
You know, we hope that you guys find it amusing, us matching every week.
Yeah, man.
I do.
Yeah.
We have one of my favorite people on the podcast. We have
Caleb, stop it.
Not you.
I love you, Keaton. You are one of my favorite people.
Thank
but
you.
we have the one, the only Christian Kelley on the podcast.
Hey.
Christian's my boss. But
Yeah, I am.
but more importantly, we do ministry together. He's done a really good job of being my mentor, equipping me for ministry. But also, like when it comes to having an intern, a boss can be like, this is what you're gonna do, and be very authoritative. But Christian just gives me a lot of opportunities, and he's full of grace. And it's just been a pleasure to do ministry with you so far. So
Yeah,
glad to have you on the
absolutely.
podcast.
It's an honor, and I can say, Caleb, you've been a great intern. Some interns are not great, including myself at one point in time, believe it or not. But you're not like me, so that's a good thing.
I've made my fair share of mistakes, though, and you've been so gracious.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Well, I will say it is nice to have you on, Christian. Just for you guys who don't know, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time when it comes to soundboards or lights or anything that has to do with technology
That's
within the
true.
church world.
Amen.
So
Yeah.
Christian is basically my 911 phone call when I can't get the Dante to work properly. I think there was like a time, like 5 Sundays in a row, I came to you with that exact same question, and it was just as simple as, "Hey, did you push this button?" And I was like,
Nothing
No.
to do with Dante.
yeah,
Nothing to
I
do
want
with
to be very
Dante.
clear. That had nothing to do with Dante.
"Yeah, it turns out I just don't know how to use a soundboard."
It's okay.
But no, Christian saved my butt a couple times. So thank you. That being said, Christian, one thing we always love to ask our guests when they're here for the first time is, how do you worship God daily?
Yeah. So if you just like look at my Spotify feed and my YouTube feed, it's just all day long I have worship music on. So that's like the most concrete way. But even more than that, like the reason behind why I just constantly am listening to worship music is it really goes back to this verse that I consider my life verse basically for forever. It's Romans. You guys have probably heard this one. It's Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind so that you can test and prove God's will. And part of why I just constantly fill my day with music that edifies and glorifies God is because I want to be filled with the things of God. And the more that I listen to the things that are singing praises to God, the more that I listen to music that edifies God, the more that I am prone to do that just automatically. And I was watching this TikTok video the other day, and it was Cece Winans. She was preaching on worship and all that stuff, and she says, you know, you should be so full of praise and you should be so full of love that when you're walking through the kitchen and you stub your toe, you shouldn't say, "Oh man, that hurt." You should say, "Praise God." And that's what I want to be every single day. So that heart of worship is just in me. It's ingrained in me, and I don't want anything to get into the way of that. So, yeah.
Well, next time you stub your toe, I'll be looking for that.
Yeah.
You can catch me.
I think that's my goal in life.
Yeah.
Say praise God when I stub my toe.
Just be walking in the church, closing off the lights, locking the doors, and you're Christian out in the blue, just going, praise God. I'm like, oh,
He
stubbed his
toe
toe.
again.
Wow.
The second question that we'd love to ask, and we think it's pretty important, and just for the listeners or viewers now, to see and hear is just, what's your call, and like, why are you doing what you are doing right now?
Oh man, do we have time for a second episode too? No, really, my call to ministry, it actually started. I kind of think even before I was born, like when I look back, and it's taken me a long time to realize, where I've been, why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. But ultimately my call, the thing that I feel like God has purposed me with like today is to, one, edify him, praise him, worship him with everything and every ounce of my being in every circumstance that I'm in, but also to just help others be able to do that. And it sounds really simple, and I think it is. God just wants me to help you guys who are students, who are learning about ministry, know how to do the things that you need to do. So, one, I just want to help people praise God, but I also want to teach people who are going to be in that position as well. Yeah. So, when I look back at it, the reason I say it started back even before I was born, I think of my parents and the stories that they led and how they ended up where they ended up. That led me to where I am today. So I think about a young boy who grew up in the hills of Kentucky with literally nothing, growing up in a trailer, and his mom would beat them. She would harass them. She was mean. She was also hyper protective, and brothers and sisters who were unruly and mean and all that stuff. So my dad, this is my dad who I'm talking about, he grew up in this horrible, hostile, vicious environment, and then he encountered somebody, this guy named Fred, this old dude named Fred, who was really, he was basically just like his mom, but the Christian like the really like better version. He was mean, he was harsh, he'd tell you how it was, but he loved the Lord. And my dad encountered this guy as a youth, and this guy took him to church every week and picked him up, and at that moment, the trajectory of my life changed. If you think about it. My dad's life changed. It changed trajectories there. And then you think of my mom, who grew up in a working class family. Mom was an alcoholic. Dad was a workaholic. And she fended for herself a lot, had brothers and sisters as well. And oftentimes saw her mom get drugged home by the police because she was out drinking and got into trouble. And then the Lord got a hold of her. She actually went to youth group at Lakeview, which is crazy.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, so it's like a full circle thing. But yeah, my parents met working at Arby's when they were teenagers here.
Most romantic place to meet.
Yes. Yeah, so they met there. They ended up getting married, had a whole season of life together, and then they ended up having me when they were like 30. And I just grew up in the church, and had they not had those experiences that they had with very important people just leading them to the Lord, I don't know that I would have ever met the Lord, and I would have gotten to know the Lord, or just I can't even think of the moment that I met the Lord. I think I just always knew him. That was kind of how my story went. So yeah, it just started a long time ago, 50 years ago, 50 some years ago. And when I really think about it, I've gone through seasons of life that weren't the best too, even in my childhood. So, grew up going to church, perfect family. Then my parents actually got divorced. I went through a season of depression, and then I actually had people in my life, just like my parents had, people in my life who took a hold of me and led me through this season and showed me the love of God. And we just never know who is going to cross our paths and who's going to show us the next step we need to take in our spiritual journey. And I had youth leaders, countless people just who attended church show me the love of God in the darkest season of my life. And that led me to going from, I wanted to be a doctor, just so you guys know. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a doctor. And the Lord said, nope. He said, you want to do that for the wrong motives, Christian. You want to do that to be successful. You want to do that to make money. You want to do that for yourself, basically. And the Lord said, no, you're going to do something for me, and you're going to be in ministry. You're going to be a pastor. And I can just think of like 3 people right away who were the biggest influences for me. First one being my first youth pastor, Jeff Brady. And if you're listening to this, Jeff, I love you. You were a huge influence on my life. Shout out to Jeff. The second person, another pastor, named Aaron Strange. He was actually a college student when Jeff was my youth pastor, and then Aaron became my youth pastor after
that's
Jeff.
so strange.
Left. I know. He would love that joke, by the way. He loves those kind of jokes. Aaron, if you're watching this, I love you, respect you. Great part of my life. And the third person, actually, two more people. The third person, Aldine Pablo, you guys may have met Aldine. He's a pastor up in Roanoke currently, leading a church plant, and he was the next youth pastor that I had at my home church in Gas City. Just an amazing guy. He brought me through this whole leadership process, and basically he had a team of youth who were just leading the youth group, which was just a really cool thing to be a part of. And then lastly, and I think most importantly for me, just the lead pastor of my church, when I was growing up, Mark Atkinson, he was kind of like that rock that I found when my family was going through that horrible season of life. And he kind of took me under his wing. He was always giving me little tidbits of truth and hope that I needed to continue on in this dark season. And Mark, if you're watching this, I love you. I love you so much, and I respect you. And thanks to all those guys for just the way that they've just been faithful to God and brought me to the place that I'm where I am today. And that's kind of the story of how I found myself in ministry.
I like that. I like that you said your story began before you were born. I think that can relate for all of us. I know that definitely plays a part in my call and like my story, and I think that for everyone, like if you really look back, our parents have such a big influence, and even their parents, and there's a reason why we are where we are, and I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I want to go back to where you talked about how you want to train the next generation, and as someone who's been a recipient of that, I appreciate it. And I know that is your heart. And that's a unique way that God has gifted you in your ministry role. And so like when we were talking to you about what were some topics that you want to talk about, you mentioned like things that you wish you would have known starting out. And so I was just curious, like we just kind of left it at that. We don't know what these things are on your heart, but we're ready to listen.
Yeah, we want to know what
you have the floor.
If nothing else.
All right. Step one.
Oh, these are steps.
I'm just making these up on the go. I'm just kidding. No, I was reflecting on that earlier today, and I was just like, okay, there's some big figures in my life, and as far as my time in ministry so far, and the things that they put me through, and I'm just like, why, Lord, did you put me through these things? Why did you put these people in my path? And I just think of our pastor that was at Lakeview before our current pastor, Pastor Tim. Rest in peace. He was an amazing man of God. He passed away from cancer a few years back. But I was a terrible intern. Absolutely terrible intern. I was just out of college. I thought I knew everything. I thought that my way, my cool songs that I wanted to do, all the cool tech I wanted to add in, which, by the way, we do all those things now. It just took time. But basically, I was naive. I was prideful. I was insistent, and when I didn't really have a voice yet, I just needed to be in the background. I needed to learn. That was my purpose as an intern. And one of the things that Pastor Tim did, he brought me into his office one day after I was a little too pushy with some stuff, and he said, "Christian, where is your humility? Where is your humility? And why do you think that you have any," like he told me how it was. He's like, "Why do you think you have authority in this place right now? Has God given it to you?" He asked me that question, and I just had to think to myself, like,
oh man,
why do I think I can say the things that I can say? God hasn't put me in a position to be able to do these things. So I would say if I was in that position then, and I can tell myself something right now, I would tell myself to just be patient, be humble, and look to those people who are leading me and those older people who have experience and who have given me the opportunity to learn from them and to be under them and just take in as much information as I can. And it's really not a season where I'm giving a whole bunch or putting out a whole bunch of effort. It's really a season where I'm just taking in as much as I possibly can. And that's what I would tell myself. Just be humble and take in as much information as I can. Another tip that he told me one day, he had this, and I think it's still in the office. It was a shoe shiner. like this machine with these two buffing wheels. These two buffing wheels on the sides.
Most
and
important.
I never knew what it was. It looked like, you know that JBL video you guys did the other day for the Super Bowl with Eddie?
Oh,
Yeah.
So it looked to me like a JBL speaker that you set in your for a tailgate party or something. I was like, had these two big old things on the side of it. And then I was like, I had no idea what this thing was. So I like walk into his office. I'm like, Pastor Tim, what the heck is that thing? And he's like, let me tell you. That is a shoe shiner. And I was like, why do you need to shine your shoes? Like, we're literally just a blue-collar church. Like, you don't need to have nice shoes. And the most profound thing about this shoe shiner that he taught me that day was when you care so much about the little details, you care about the big details too. And he also rephrased it this way, like, if you learn how to tie your shoes so that they don't become untied, you're going to learn how to help people through through the season of life that they're in a more careful way. It was just like, holy cow.
I just asked you what this machine was.
He's like, let me tell you how to do ministry.
Miss
Let me pull out
Miyagi
the
here.
shoe shiner right now. So yeah, I never in my life would have thought that I would have got advice about a shoe shiner, but there we go. So if I could tell myself anything back then, it's just pay closer attention to the little details, because there was a lot of things that I wanted to do that I just wasn't as careful about. And when you're careful about those little details, the overall experience that you're providing for people, the intentionality that you have toward the things that you're doing, whether it be a service, whether it be a devotional, whether it's just a conversation that you're having with a congregant, those things tend to be more just better and more in tune with what God would want you to do. So yeah, those are the big two things that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, those are really good just right away. And it's just starting with number one, like humility being just, I mean, it's amazing that you start with that, because that is the foundation of literally everything you do in ministry. But yeah, there's so many of us, especially us who are younger and just about to step into ministry for the first time. I mean,
We are the younger me's.
we are your younger me. So I don't know what our equivalent of a shoe shiner would be, but we'll find that out maybe later in this conversation. But no, I think we all, in some degree, when we step out of college, or maybe it's just our first year in ministry, there is that desire to prove ourselves. Like, oh yeah, I learned this in seminary. I learned this in my undergrad. I can do this. But I love what you say. Like, those are the years in which I actually need to sit back and I just need to take in. The reality is you're still a student. Even the most skilled pastor out there still needs to take the posture of a student and learn from others. So I think that's just so good. So thank you for that.
Well, and I even think about, like, I forget where I've heard this, but, like, there's times of, like, just listening and there's times to lead. And I think, so often we leave college just so ready to do ministry, and, like, we're, like, so eager because we've spent so much time, learning, preparing, that we're like, I'm ready to lead. But, like, truly, those are the times, that's the season where you need to listen. Yeah. Because, they know you're equipped. That's why you're on staff. That's why you're an intern and they want you. But, like, it's just a time to grow. And because there will be a time where, you'll be in a season where you will be leading and pouring into others. And that doesn't mean you can't do both. But, that was good. I think we get caught up in that sometimes.
And I just thought of something else that was really important as I was growing up. And I actually learned this one after the fact. So I had multiple intern practicum experiences, as you guys have had as well throughout your time in college. And the first internship that I was a part of was at my home church that I had gone to for like 20 years, which is it just is weird to say that. Like, I was at the same church for 20 years. I'm almost 30. Don't remember. But yeah, I was at the same church for 20 years. I became an intern. That internship was fine. It wasn't anything crazy. I didn't do anything crazy. I was used to the status quo there, so I just went along with what we always did. And then I went to another local church in town where it had a very similar feel, just kind of like that hometown country feel. And that was like right when my girlfriend and I at the time got engaged. So she was my fiance, my wife now.
Oh yeah, congrats!
Shout out to you, Ashley. So at
This
that
could be you, Keaton.
No, it won't.
Anyways, so I went to this other local church, and Pastor Brent, he was gracious enough to let me stand in and be an intern there, and I participated and helped with the worship team. That was kind of the main thing that I did in youth group and on Sunday mornings at my home church, was just help with youth group and Sunday morning worship. And I didn't learn this until after that internship was over, but Pastor Brent was talking to one of the pastors at the other church, my home church, about how he could fire me as an intern that was unpaid. And I was like,
oh no,
was I that bad?
Oh.
And so anyways, after the fact, I went and I talked with them about that. And again, just let me remind you, I had just gotten engaged. I learned that I was so distracted by this other thing in my life, Ashlyn, and I don't want to take away from that at all, because that was a huge part of my life. But I did let this thing that was so personal and selfish to me distract me from the things that God was calling me to. So I think if I could tell myself anything, it's like, Christian, you need to focus on the task at hand. Yes, I needed to also focus on preparing to get married, but I need to have focus on the things that I'm also doing when I'm in those places of ministry. So when you guys are in those places of ministry, when you're actually doing ministry, when you're serving in youth, when you're serving on the worship team, when you're serving in discipleship stuff, that is your focus in those moments. Save all the other stuff when you're not doing ministry. Yeah. And it seems so obvious and so silly that was the thing I almost got fired for. But guys, be focused. Yeah. Worry about the thing that's in front of you.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's just that simple.
I'm a part of the university chorale. One of the things, it's a demonstration we have every year. It's like a ritual at this point. The director, Davey Chin, will bring a trash can to the middle of the room and give everybody a piece of paper and tells everybody to like write the things on your mind right now. And so we'll write like, I'm tired, I got homework, all the things. And he goes, all right, throw it in the trash can. And then we'll throw it in the trash can. He goes, and he takes the trash can and spends time like picking up the trash can and walking it outside. And he goes, leave your crap outside. And like when you're here, you're focused on this. And it's a stupid demonstration, but I think it goes back to the point to like, when we're in ministry, we can't be focused on the other things, especially when ministry is about other people. Yeah. Like when we're focused on ourselves, it goes back to point one about humility. Like, when we're willing to allow other people to be our focus and allow other people to be like what we're focused on, like our most important priority. That's right. That's when we are doing ministry, right? Not what we're focused on. On what we're doing or how we look or all the things that come with that.
Yeah, and also be aware, burnout is a real thing.
For sure.
And it's usually caused by people who don't worry about their own health or their mentality,
right?
And they're just focused on others. So that is also it's a balance.
Yeah.
We have to
that's exactly what I was about to say. One of the problems that I had, I was focused on that at certain times, but I also was the kind of person after that happened, like, and I've gotten into my internship at Lakeview at this point. I was so focused in on ministry that I wouldn't say I was neglecting marriage, but there were things that we just hadn't worked through as a newly married couple that we did need to focus on. But I was new in ministry. I was so excited. I was so invigorated. And over the last 7.5 years of being at Lakeview, that's one thing I've had to learn is like, how do you balance this personal life that you have, the personal relationship you have, and then the work that you have. And my dad has always been the biggest workaholic I've ever known. Like every waking hour, like he doesn't have fun. He just likes to work. Like that's what I grew up with, and I was always out working with him. So that's what I enjoy doing. I love like ask anybody at the church. There's times when I am at the church way too late.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah, we all know.
And then but then I try to come in at like 2 p.m. the next day, so it's okay. But anyways, like I just have that ingrained in me. So if I could tell myself anything when I was younger, is like learn to balance your work life and your personal life. How I did that was just like being very intentional to look at how much time I was spending with my wife, how much time I was spending with family, how much time I was spending in the office. And you literally just have to say, these are my boundaries, like set up personal boundaries for, okay, I'm going to spend this much time at work. I'm going to spend this much time in my office. And maybe that means that you actually have to schedule out personal times.
Yeah.
So whether that's your day alone with God, which we, all of us on staff, we have one of those every single month, and mine's on the last Thursday of the month. So schedule that out so that you actually have time away from the office.
Yeah.
One thing that Ashlyn and I have talked about is like we need to schedule a time during the week that is our date night,
Yeah.
which we're not the greatest at it because we're both workaholics, unfortunately, but we have an understanding there. But that's just one of the things that we've talked about. Like maybe that's something we need to do so that we actually get that intentional time with each other. And then anything else, like hobbies, for example, schedule out time for that if you have to, if that's a problem and that's getting in your way too. So,
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways. And like, you know, and too much of either is not good. My dad's a lead pastor, and he's so funny with anyone on staff that's like on vacation or something, or even for him, like other people do it to him. He's like, I do not want to hear from you. I do not. If you send me a text message while you are on vacation about work, I'm not going to respond.
Exactly.
He's like, I don't care actually. It can wait. And the same thing with him. I remember there's I forget what happened, but there was like one time where something came up, and they needed to call him, and it was just like they were so apologetic, and he's like, it's okay. He's like I understand, but it's important. Like you need to have hard set boundaries, and I've seen even with him, like him growing. Now, I mean, now he has grandchildren, so it's so easy for him. He's like, I don't care. I'm gonna hang out with them. But yeah, it's important to have hard set boundaries and to focus on work when you're at work, and you know yourself when your family when you're with your family.
Yeah, and especially starting that out young, knowing your boundaries and creating those as early as you can. I've known way too many pastors, really good pastors, who have walked away from the ministry within the first 3 years of college, all because they didn't know how to say no and start boundaries.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, burnout, as you said, burnout is real.
It's
real in any profession. Like, no matter what you're doing, even if you're working just a normal 9 to 5 in a cubicle, like, if all you do is that, you're probably going to start to hate your work at some point.
Hey guys, hope you've been enjoying the episode so far. We want to take a quick second from the episode to tell you to subscribe, to rate the podcast, to hit the notification bell, all the things that you guys already know how to do. We want to stay connected with you, and we want to let you know about when we're dropping new content. So make sure you are liking, subscribing, all that jazz.
Also, leave some comments. We want to hear your feedback and things that you want to talk about when it comes to worship and all that goes with that. Also, follow us on all social media platforms at The Sound Doctrine, where you can see clips, quotes, and even some guests or information about new episodes that are coming.
If you have not yet, please go and check out our exclusive partner, the Worship Warehouse. Link will be in the description. And you are a worship leader, or maybe someone who's just interested more in worship. They have some resources there that they would love to get into your hands. So please check them out.
Now, with all that said, let's go back to the episode.
So I've got one more. This is probably the biggest thing that I think I actually did a good job learning this when I needed to learn it. But I would tell you guys this right now is patience is one of the single most important things that you can learn to be really good at having, if that makes sense. And so I'll tell you why that was so important for me as I was going through this season at Lakeview. By the way, Lakeview, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't at Lakeview right now. Like, it is just an amazing church. I'm so glad to be there, and we have an amazing pastor, and it's just night and day difference from what it was when I was there. And even when I arrived at that church, I mean, it was still a good church full of loving, wonderful people who, when I got there, they just took me under their arm. They loved on me. They taught me. They spent time with me. And but still, the night and day difference is just amazing, where God had us back then and where he's taken us now.
Yeah.
And when I got to Lakeview, it was right after graduating from Indiana Wesleyan. And that was 2017, right after graduation. Went to this little small church that was getting ready to close in town, and they said, we just need a worship leader until we close here in a few months. So went to this church, was a paid worship leader there for a little while, and worked alongside another gal named Caitlin Altman, which she works at another Wesleyan church, and I think she's actually getting ready to go overseas now that I think about it. But,
wow.
Worked with her, and I was like, Lord, what am I doing here? I was also working as a maintenance guy for an apartment complex in town. And so I was just like, Lord, why am I in this position right now? Like, I just graduated from a really great school for ministry. I'm in my master's program right now. Like, I'm a maintenance guy and a worship leader for like 2 hours on Sunday mornings with like no other time during the week. And literally I just heard the Lord say, Christian, just be patient.
Mm.
So I'm just like, whatever, God, whatever. I'll do whatever you say, but I'm not gonna like it. So
Jonah?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So continue on through this month. My time ends at this little church. They stayed open for a little bit longer after I left, but during that season, I had been reaching out to churches in town to like say like, hey, do you guys have any internships available, any residencies, anything like that? And the only church that really responded was Lakeview, and it was their young adults pastor at the time that reached out and said, hey, yeah, come on in. So I jumped on for a guest worship leading Sunday, the September before I actually joined the team. And they basically, this young adults pastor basically just told me like, yeah, you've got free reign. Do whatever you want to do. For
Man, that's crazy.
It was nuts. So I come in there with like Elevation and Bethel and like You Won't Relent, like old classic Jesus culture, leading worship. I come into the practice for that team, which was on Wednesdays. And this was the first time I've ever met these people on this worship team. And Mark Deisler, one of the old worship leaders, he's the worship pastor at Westview now. He was like the one of the guys there, and another guy on the team. They kind of like were tag team leading because they didn't have like an official worship pastor or anything like that. So I come in, I've got all my notes. I'm just like super thorough, like every detail for every part of the song I have written out in this huge paragraph. And so they're like, what do we do with this? Like, what is this? It's so ridiculous. So anyways, I lead that Sunday. I find out like months later that the young adults pastor at the time got reamed for me coming in and doing this. So anyways, I actually successfully got the internship. Nice. Somehow. So I start that in January, started attending there in January, and continue on this internship. I don't even know how long it lasted. I'm terrible with time. So continue on this internship. The church is not in great shape financially. I will say that. That's just the reality of being a part of a local congregation. Finances, they ebb and flow. And we get to this point where this thing called COVID just screwed everything.
I don't think I've heard of it.
I don't know. What is that? What is this COVID you speak of?
Is it like influenza?
Before your time. That is our time. That was
your time.
Yeah.
That was your time. So COVID hit. When did that happen?
2020.
2020 to 2021.
So it wasn't 2019.
No.
Okay. I missed a very important detail before.
Well,
okay.
It's called COVID-19 because it started in like December. So I mean,
okay.
Sure.
It's actually called COVID-19 because of the strand, but that's okay.
I thought it's because it started 2019.
No.
Well,
it actually started way before that because it was in China for a long while.
I'll probably cut that out.
Yeah.
Clip that one.
Caleb doesn't say dumb things often, but when he does,
they're pretty dumb.
Yeah.
And he cuts them.
I missed a very important detail. That I could not remember when COVID happened. Anyways, 2019, before COVID, our pastor passed away. At that time, he got cancer. He passed away. And that just really threw a wrench in things that were going on at the church. So it kind of like attendance, whenever there's a pastoral change, attendance kind of changes, patterns of people coming and going change. Some people were there because of him. He had actually gone through like maybe 8 months or so of him being away because he was so sick.
Yeah.
And then the cancer just really wreaked havoc, and he passed away in the summer of 2019. So we end up with an interim pastor, and the church is trying to figure out what to do with finances. So I had been an intern here for a couple years now, and I got sat in a room and they fired me. as an intern. And it wasn't because of anything I did. It was just because of finances. They couldn't pay me. And I was just going to the Lord and like, Lord, why? Yeah. I've been here for so long. Like, I don't deserve this. Like, I've helped this team grow. I've brought in new ideas. Like, why did you do this? And the Lord literally told me again, Christian, be patient.
Wow.
I was like, what? Why this again? And I was like, all right, Lord. So like I talked with my wife and prayed about it a lot. And the Lord just told me, like, just stay put. Like, keep on doing what you're doing. Like, you've got another job. You're still a handyman. Just keep on doing what you're doing. And then COVID hit. And I couldn't go in people's houses. I couldn't do my job. So then I'm just like, what is going on? So we have an interim pastor going through COVID. And then I get hired back on.
Yeah.
So then it was just like one of those things where I realized, like, kind of in real time, like, you know, the Lord told me, like, be patient. I don't know why. I got hired back on, which was amazing. Pastor Chris, our current pastor, he got hired on a little bit later that year. And actually, no, I did not get hired back on yet. So Pastor Chris was there. And then later that year, I got hired back on. And then that was the answer to prayer. So I was still an intern. I was actually working alongside these other two guys that were leading the worship department. And it was interesting, and not in a bad way. Yeah. It was interesting because each and every single one of us grew up in a different setting for worship. So
that is interesting.
One of the guys was an ordained minister of the Wesleyan Church, and he'd been a lead pastor locally. And I don't know how old he was, but he just grew up in a different era of worship than I did. Yeah. And then the other gentleman, he was a little bit younger than the other guy, not too much, but his dad was like a Pentecostal preacher, and he grew up in that style of leading worship. And so you put the three of us together, and we're taking turns leading, so those different styles come out every single
week.
And so guess what I asked the Lord? Lord, why? What is going on? What is happening right now? And guess what he said?
Be patient.
Be patient.
Wow. Who would have thought?
Patient.
Wow, Keaton, that was good. That was good.
Over time,
50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Over time, the Lord was really just setting Lakeview up for success. And at one point in time, there was a conversation that was had, and the decision was made that, you know, these other two guys, they have full-time jobs elsewhere, and I'm ready to kind of take the lead. And so Pastor Chris sat me down and said, Christian, I think you're ready to go. I trust you, and let's make this thing happen. And so I was hired back on. I was later made the worship pastor, and at that point in time, it was just part-time. And so, yeah, things were really good right there. And then for some weird reason, the devil put in my mind, Christian, you deserve full-time. And then I just got this like bad attitude, like, Lord, why am I doing this again? Why am I doing this right now? I'm not getting a pay raise. So it's basically just me becoming selfish, becoming prideful again, and not being appreciative of the situation that God has allowed me to be in. And God said, Christian, just be patient, bro. Like, calm
Wait
down.
A minute,
be
please.
patient, Christian. Goodness. And then our maintenance guy at the time. Okay, this is fast forward to the winter, probably 2021-ish, something like that. He was outside pushing snow, and he had a heart attack.
Oh no!
I know, it was horrible. He did not die. He's fine. He still goes to church.
Good.
He still goes to church with us. So maintenance guy has this heart attack while he's pushing snow, and I am asked, Christian, you have maintenance experience, right? We would love to hire you full time to be our maintenance guy and our worship pastor. And I'm just like, why? And then I'm like, God, you told me to be patient. You gave me what I asked for, but this is not at all what I was asking for. Come on, God. So anyways, I'm just thinking of Jonah again. That was my belly of the whale moment right there. But anyways, so I started working as the maintenance guy for our facility and the worship pastor part-time. So got my full-time hours in. That was supposed to be very temporary. We were supposed to look for a new guy. 3 years later.
2024, when we come in, he's
Yeah,
still the maintenance guy.
I came in 23.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, get wrecked.
Yeah.
Forgot
loser.
Caleb has an extra year on me.
So 2024 comes around, and we're finally able to put together a plan to get a new maintenance guy. And praise the Lord, we did.
He's
Yeah.
great.
Shout out to Thomas. You're
Thomas,
awesome.
You rock, bro.
So anyways, we hired him. He started in last October, and then I finally passed the reins officially in January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to do with facilities. If you ask me anything, I'll say, ask Thomas.
Don't
And
talk to
so
me.
it was just,
Yeah.
again, one of those moments where the Lord just said, be patient. And then 3 years later, he finally answered the prayers that I was asking him. So this is a twofold piece of advice for you guys. Be patient, please. For the love of God, be patient in all things.
Why?
The Lord is just so trustworthy.
Yeah.
He's also so loving. He's so willing to give out grace and pour out grace to those who love him. And I truly believe, just this is from experience and through studying the scriptures, that when we just seek out for what the Lord wants in our lives, when we ask for his will to happen, like he's just so gracious to give it to us when it is according to his plan. And when we are seeking out his heart, he actually makes our heart like his. It's not that he gives us what we want as individuals, it's he makes our heart like his, and the things that we want are the things that he wants, and then he gives them to us. And I think the Lord, just in that time of patience and groaning that I went through, he was just continuing to soften my heart to make me a little bit more like him. And then when my heart aligned with his, he was so much more gracious in giving me the things that I was asking for. And then when you think about it, really the Lord is telling each and every single one of us, like, give me your heart. Give me your heart in every moment. Don't think about yourself, but give me your heart. And I want to kind of sidetrack a little bit. One of the reasons that I became specifically a worship pastor, yes, I got a call to ministry, but I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to be in ministry. The reason I became worship pastor is, one, I was musically gifted. I've been involved in music since I was in kindergarten, basically, with choirs and bands and all that stuff. And then I just got the opportunity to serve in worship teams growing up in youth group and on Sunday mornings. So one of the first kind of like classes that I had was Worship 101 with Dr. Cherry Constance here. And she really just helped me to change my perspective. And one of the conversations that I had with her, I brought just a little bit of notes with me here. This has to do with these guys called the Levites. You guys heard of the Levites?
Oh,
I
yeah.
had
Yeah.
I don't know who they are.
well, maybe.
Keaton, this is why he came in 2024. I'm just kidding.
He still doesn't know. Who
They weren't ready for me yet. I was like, patience.
So basically, in
Why?
First Chronicles, these guys called the Levites, they were a part of the tribes of Israel, and they were given these responsibilities. Basically, here's just a quick outline of the responsibilities that they were given. They were responsible to lead the music for the tribe of Israel. They sung songs of praise and thanks to God. They were charged with the security of the temple. So, like, they were the guards. They, like, if anything was going down in the temple, they were going to take care of it. They were in charge of the maintenance, so like the setting up and the tearing down of the temple. And like when I was thinking about this, I never in my life thought that I was going to be the maintenance guy of the church. Fun fact, I did not burn the church down, but I almost did twice.
Wait. How does that connect? Okay, never mind. Continue.
Maintenance does not connect to worship, if that's what you're asking.
No, you're like, I didn't try to burn the church down, but I almost did
because
twice.
He was saying that like if something happened, it
Yeah.
was placed on him.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he
yeah,
was
yeah.
saying,
I was
you
just doing
almost-
my job, man.
Yeah.
I almost burned the church down is what I'm saying. On accident. I didn't try to burn the church. Anyways. Back
That was
to
for
the
insurance purposes.
So anyways, they're in charge with the maintenance. They're in charge of the ceremonies. So like purification ceremonies. And we think of like today, like, you know, we got baptisms, we've got communion, we've got marriages, all those kinds of things. They were in charge for the sacred bread. So the communion elements that we would use today. weights and measures. So basically the weights and measures just made sure that everything was traded fairly, that anything that they were buying and selling, those kinds of things were all in order. They were in charge of the burnt offerings. They were in charge of teaching, so they actually did some teaching of the law. And they were also serving oftentimes as judges, so whenever issues were going on in the church. So when I think about all of those roles, I'm just like, man, Lord, you've already created me to be somebody who loves the church and loves worship so much. And thinking about these people who were charged with much of the same things that the Lord has called me to care about just gave me that much more passion. Like, God has been calling people to do this for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And he's asked me to be a part of this job of taking care of the church, of leading people in praising and edifying him. And I don't know, that's just what gets me going, guys.
Yeah.
I just love being able to live out this call that God's placed on my life. And it's amazing. And I get to do it with awesome guys like you, which is so much fun. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your heart for worship definitely stands out. Because when I came to college, I didn't necessarily want to be a worship major. That in itself, I just want to do ministry, and I wanted to have a music education. Like, that's kind of where I wanted to go. And when I came to Lakeview my first time, I just loved it, and I wanted to be on the team. Like, that was just like, I can't remember how I got on the team. It was like the next week though. I felt like I was like on, and but
because you were a drummer and I needed a drummer, bro.
True. But I feel like your heart for worship just like always came out, because it didn't matter what we were doing, or if things sounded the best, or if we liked the set, or even if you liked the set, if you scheduled it, like, it didn't matter what it was. You just came to every rehearsal and every meeting just like, here's what we're doing, and we're doing this not for ourselves but for the Lord. And I feel like that just always comes out. Obviously that's not something that comes naturally. That's something that you have to work towards. How do you ask God to transform your heart in that aspect? Because it probably does come back to that patience bit a little bit, but that also is something that you have to like intentionally want yourself. So like, how did you ask God to change your heart in that way?
Yeah, I think in all the times like the Lord asked me to be patient, he was also just drawing me closer to him. Because if I would have just said, okay, I'll be patient, and then I just filled all the time with things that were not like, of him, or I didn't continue to read the Bible, continue to pray, if I didn't continue to just spend time with him in general, it would have been really easy to just say that, God, you suck. I don't want to be patient. I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
So I think just God has instilled in me just this heart to continually draw near to him in every moment of every day. That's just such a cliche answer, but it's true. I just want more of God in every moment. And I really just don't know. I don't know why the Lord has done this to my life. I can't even think of a time where I've been even just skeptical of what the Lord is doing, just because he has shown me his grace and mercy throughout my time growing up, where he's given me the ability to trust him so much, and he's shown me his love in so many ways. He's shown me how gracious he is in so many ways, and because of all of that stuff, I just want other people to know him the same way that I do. That's so hard to do.
Yeah.
That's so hard to do, because you guys haven't experienced God the same way that I have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It does kind of feel like it's just a natural thing in me, but I feel like because of the things that the Lord has brought me through, the experiences that I've had with the Lord, and realizing that I can't just stop having time with the Lord. Otherwise, I will fill that time. I will fill that empty space in my heart with the things of this world. So.
Yeah, and I think that just comes back to the value of your day alone with God. You said you do once a month. And I mean, we're lucky enough that we work at a church that has that built into the schedule for us.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that.
Yeah.
So for you listeners out there, this goes for both the pastor and the congregant. If you haven't yet found a time in which you can schedule a day alone with God and just spend in his presence, I highly encourage that. Will's breaking our set again.
You always break their scarf.
It's fallen off like 4 times. But okay, I have one final question before we close out. Something just funny, but I don't know why. Probably because of Super Bowl last night. But I was here
Dude,
about.
hang on. Before, I wanted to bring some of the Super Bowl because you're wearing Philadelphia green and you're wearing the Kansas City colors. I know this like halfway through, and I was like, how can I weave that back in? But you mentioned Super Bowl, so I just wanted to say that.
I was thinking about like all the times NFL players would be like, what was like your come to the NFL moment? Like you knew you were NFL. What was like your come to ministry moment? Like when you were like, oh yeah, I'm doing this now. like what like the transition between like, and you were an intern for a while, but like when were you like, this is on me? Like what was like something funny or like something that like just happened where you're like, oh yeah, I'm in charge. Yeah.
That is an interesting question. It's a hard question too, because it feels like it has been so long. I feel like I've been here for eternity.
You're a vet now.
Yeah, almost 30.
Almost 30, guys. Yeah, no, I think in the times where I have failed is kind of where I realize, oh man, this is my responsibility, and I've let somebody down. And I still fail. I mean, there's always going to be times of failure and all that stuff. But no, I can think of times where, actually, I just thought of something. And it's so silly and dumb. But there was this Good Friday service that we were doing a couple years back. And basically, I was so underprepared. And I was rushing around so much. And so much so that I had gotten off of my maintenance job because I was still doing maintenance stuff at the church at that time.
Yeah.
Gotten off of the maintenance side of things just way too late. I was meant to go home, change, and all that stuff. And then super underprepared. One of our good friends on the team was also leading with me. She showed up dressed to the nines, like in a dress. She and I was in I didn't have time to go change or shower or anything. So I'm in like my oil covered, like disgusting clothes. I didn't have things printed out. And it was just one of those moments when I felt like, man, I am horrible. Yet I am still responsible right now. So I don't know. There's just a lot of times where I've just, the Lord reminds me like, Christian, you're not enough, but I am. And in those moments, it's when I realize, God has called me to do this job. He's called me to be a worship pastor, but not in my own strength. He's called me to do this, and he's actually giving me strength the more that I rely on him to do all of these things. So I think just as those moments continue to happen, I become closer to the Lord, and I learn to trust him and love him and rely on him and put all my burdens on him. But I also just realize more and more and more that he's called me to do something in his kingdom, and that's just such an honor and such an amazing thing to do. And every single one of us, whether we're in ministry or not in ministry, have a part to play in that. And if every single person in our churches could realize like they can put it all on him, they don't have to do it in their own strength, like how much better could the world be if we could do that? So,
that's funny. And like I think we forget that sometimes. This past weekend I was at my wife's church, and the pastor said they were going through Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount, and it ends with like be perfect as I am perfect. And he goes, my homework for you guys is go be perfect.
That's the perfect benediction.
So that just made me think about like we're not gonna, we're actively shooting for that, and that is our goal, but we're working on it. So So everyone listening, go be perfect.
And one of the other parts of my call, and I'm only just now like recently kind of discovering this about myself and about what the Lord has gifted me with and all that stuff, is just technology overall. Yeah. And we don't have time to talk about that today, but like one of the things that the Lord has given.
Not you kidding.
One of the things that the Lord has just been like, Christian, you're good at this, and you need to just use it to God's highest potential, basically. Is just, make best use of technology, make best use of the creative elements that you can do in services. And I'm just only kind of tapping into that side of things. I've been making home videos with my friends since literally elementary school, and they were terrible back then. But like, I think about all those experiences that I've had with even that stuff. And like, God has gifted me with this stuff, and he's given me a passion over time. Like, okay, how can I just align that part of my life with God's purposes now? So just recently transitioned into a more creative role at the church. So I'm doing worship stuff, I'm doing creative stuff, and just basically helping Lakeview tell its story and tell its people's story through the creative arts as well. So
He's pretty good at it. He's been doing some cool stuff with social media and just really everything. Mm-hmm. He's been doing some cool stuff there.
You also were able to use your carpentry skills to actually redesign and rebuild the entire youth space for us. He completely ripped up the entire stage and started from the ground up, and it looks phenomenal.
And it needed it. It needed it.
Yeah, it did. But it looks so fantastic, and just, I mean, that's just a credit to your work and God's work through your life throughout the years. And who would have thought that all those years ago that job would have paid off in this way? So, yeah, it's amazing.
Well, Christian, it's been a pleasure having you on.
It's been good, guys.
We've loved just kind of listening to you, and it was basically like 5, maybe 6 points, 5 stories at least, of like what you've learned and what God has taught you. And so I think there's just a lot to learn from your experience and the lessons that God's taught you, so that hopefully we don't have to follow the same footsteps all the way. Same lessons, but maybe not some of the same stories. So thank you so much for having
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, words. Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
So remember to keep
My
on.
pleasure. It's an honor.
Oh man, remember to keep on seeking.
Keep singing.
And let Sound Doctrine lead the way. See you guys.
Our show is brought to you by the Lantern Podcast Network through Wesley Seminary at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Thank you, Indiana Wesleyan University, for allowing us to use your podcast studio.
For more Christian content, check out the Lantern Podcast Network. And as always, keep singing,
keep seeking,
and let Sound Doctrine lead the way.